This is 2A part 7, where you are asked to create two buttons. One is going to be a clear button that will clear all the variables on the worksheet but leave the calculations alone. And the other is going to be a print instructor leasing button that will print just the leasing part of the pricing model. That's this part here. So what we need to do first of all is create the shapes that are going to be our buttons. So I'm going to go to Insert and select Shapes. I always like a rounded rectangle for a button. So I'm going to create my clear button, and I could be happy with that, that's fine. I might choose a 3D option such as this one here. I'm going to copy and paste that so that I've got two buttons, and I'll line them up there. So my first one, and at the moment it's only a shape, it's not become a button yet, I'm going to add some text to it, and you have to get your right hand click in the right place when you do this, usually right at the edge. There we go. And I'm going to select Edit Text, and the text I'm going to put on here is clear, and I'll make that a little bit bigger. We'll put it in the center. Okay, perhaps press enter as well to make it, no, probably better there. We might want to make the button a little bit thinner, but I'm happy with that, that's fine. So we'll do the same with this one. Okay, now this one is to print the instructor leasing section, so print instructor leasing. Let's make that a bit bigger as well, and we'll center it. There we go, there's our two buttons. No, they're not buttons yet because they don't actually do anything. When I click on them, they're just shapes. To turn them into buttons, we need to add a function that's going to work with them. We're going to be doing that in a moment by assigning a macro. But before we do that, we need to record the macros that we're going to use. Now earlier, when you created these checkboxes, you had to enable the developer ribbon. If you haven't got that developer ribbon enabled, just very quickly, you right hand click anywhere on the ribbon, select Customize the ribbon, and you make sure that developer is ticked. Okay, and that will give you access to this. Now here we've got the option where we can record a macro. Right? What this will do is record the steps that we take, and then when we play it back, it will repeat those steps. Now what I'm going to do to start off with, before I record the macro, is make sure that I haven't selected any important cells. I'm going to go for the record macro option, and I'm going to call this clear variables. Now it won't let you put any spaces in the macro name, that's fine. Click on OK. Right, it's now recording. Okay, you don't really know it's recording, it's very difficult to tell, apart from at the bottom of the screen you can see there's this stop button, and at the top of the button you've got stop recording as well. Well, all we want it to do is select these cells, so I'm going to select all of those cells, and we want them to be deleted. So I'm going to hit the delete key on the keyboard. That has deleted all the variables. That's all we want the macro to do, to stop recording. That's the macro done. Just going to undo what I've done so I've got all the data back. So let's assign that macro to this button. So assign macro, clear variables, click on OK, click somewhere else on the screen. Now look, this is now a button because it's got a hand, and when I click on that, notice it clears those values because it's remembered the macro. I'll just undo again. Oh well, let me undo because I've used a macro. That's okay, doesn't matter. Now when it comes to annotating this, you are going to need to annotate the macro as well as explaining the steps that you did. So to get to the macro, if you click on macros and click on edit when you've got clear variables highlighted, here we go, this is the macro, and what you're going to do is you'll annotate it. So you'll annotate it to explain that here is where you selected the cells. So can you see those are the cells you selected? And this is the select option, so you selected that range of cells. And here is where you took that selection and you cleared the contents by deleting. So you'll need an annotation for that and an annotation for this bit here as well. So we'll just close down the Visual Basic and we'll have a look now at the Print Instructor Leasing button. And what we want to do is we want to print this section here. So we're just going to highlight that section and print the selection. But before we do, we need to create a macro. We don't want to have that highlighted before the macro because that needs to be highlighted as part of the steps. So I'll click somewhere else. We'll go to record macro and I'm going to put print leasing as the macro name. OK. Right, we're recording now. So I'll highlight this section here. We'll say that we want to print that. So we'll go to File, Print, and instead of printing the active sheet, we'll print just the selection. Notice that's printing just that selection, not the buttons. Of course, I haven't got any data in there because I've just recently deleted it. And then we select the print option. Now I'm not going to print to the printer. Okay, mine's printing to what's called a PDF file, which is the files that are read by Adobe Reader. So I'm just going to cancel because I don't need to finish printing it, and that's a different piece of software now anyway. So we'll click on stop. Try again, click on stop. There we go, that's now stopped the recording. So let's assign that macro. Assign that to print leasing. Click on OK. And of course you don't want to keep running this macro if it's going to keep printing to your classroom printer. So if you've got a PDF printer that you can use, that would be a good idea. Or even you can usually find in the list of printers as an XPS writer, which will write it to a different type of file. So we'll click on this button now, and there we go, it's gone through that print process, and I know that because it's come up asking me to save the PDF file. Again, to annotate it, if we go to macros, select print leasing, edit, and let's have a look at what we're going to be annotating. It's this bit here. So we explain how we selected the range. There's your range, B19 to C25, that was selected. And then you printed out the selection. So it's a selection that was printed out. Okay, it just uses whatever printer was in your list, it will use that printer. That's all it needs to be. Now you might be thinking, oh well, I'd have done this using set print area. Yep, that's fine. You can set a print area as well. You could have done this as the print area, set that as a print area, and then gone to print. That would be fine. Okay, but you'll need to have both of those things recorded in the macro. So that's your buttons.